What do you think of President Obama at the present situation?
She said, I cried when President Obama was elected. What do I think now? Number one, the war in Iraq ended today. Promise made, promise kept. That's a step in the right direction. His victory was a redemptive moment for America and for the world. He has met unusual resistance by a force within our own country, those who are willing to sink the ship just to destroy the captain, the kind of a congressional rebellion. And he keeps raising the right ideas. The issue of stop the hemorrhage of job loss and begin to create jobs. The issue of health care based upon need across our nation. And so his work will go on, and those who join that side of history, I'm convinced, on the right side of history. Next. Yes, sir.
Would you consider us a revolutionary or an evolutionary movement?
Would I consider this a revolutionary or evolutionary movement? It is evolution. It's going day by day by day. And the beauty of it is that you have to be a long-distance runner. There is no one-day revolution. You have to change the situation. You have to change the roots. And we began sitting in Montgomery in 1955. We got the public accommodation bill in 1964, 9 years later. We never stopped. The race does not go to the swift, the one-day fighter, or the strong, but those who endure. And so be in the struggle to make the world more secure as a lifetime struggle, not just an episode.
Woo!
Yes, sir.
What do you make of the idea of Occupy turning into a more formalised political party for election?
Occupy takes on many dimensions. For example, for some it is a spirit that says protest to get attention and change the conversation. That is to say that we were just discussing the Iraq war or discussing debt ceilings and discussing bonuses. We're now discussing poverty. That's an impact of Occupy. Occupy in UC Davis in California means reduce tuition and because student loan debt's greater than credit card debt. Occupy in Michigan means stop emergency managers from taking over, replacing Democratic officials. Occupy takes on many forms. Occupy searches for the zones of inequality. So it may be a demonstration on a campus saying reduce tuition. It may be at a hospital saying admit people who are sick who don't have money. It may be at a political booth saying we want a certain policy change. So Occupy, the beauty of it not having a leader, you can't assassinate it. And you can't drive it away with tear gas. Drive it away with tear hoses. Dr. King's last act on earth was the Poor People's Campaign, put together a multiracial coalition of people from around the nation and occupied the mall in Washington, challenging us to choose the war on poverty and healing rather than war in Vietnam and killing. So Occupy is as great as the gaps of inequality are, and I'm convinced when the people move in big numbers, they'll fill those gaps.
How long do you think it can last in this form here? You know,
Long enough, mate. Long enough.
Let him make his point, please. Sir.
There have been attempts to evict the protesters here. How long can it last in this form?
The forms change as according to a given timetable. Clearly in America, a form is upon us as we look at 2012. But that is the political form. For some people, the form is about health care, or it's about environment, or it's about child care, or it's about banker exploitation, or it may be about war. So we need not hurry to get the form, just keep the hope and the dynamic alive. Yes, ma'am. Come a little closer, please.
Can't hear you.
The cathedral has said that they hear the message of Occupy London, but this is not the right place for that message to be given because of the situation. From the Times newspaper, the cathedral has said they hear the message of Occupy London. They hear that message. But this is not the right place for the protests to take place on the foot in the door of the cathedral. What do you say to that?
I think the church inside and outside should be the headquarters of the Occupy movement. This is Jesus said, I shall measure character by how you treat the least of these. I was hungry and you fed me, or you didn't. Naked and you clothed me, or you didn't. In prison, and you visited me, or you didn't. So much of our work is not just church work within the walls, it's the work of the church outside the walls. And in some sense, the occupiers represent the church's mission. When Jesus came up and saw a woman across the street giving her only little mite, all that she had, and she was total devotion, and then the church side with the big investors, the money changers in the temple, and he kicked over the tables and occupied the temple because he loved it. He wanted to separate the corrupt body politic from the holiness of the church, which is to care for the least of these. In some sense, the occupiers represent the conscience of the church. They are the voice that must be heard. Dr. King, while he was alive, and Mandela in his younger days, and Gandhi, were rejected as marchers. We now love them as martyrs. We must embrace living marchers and martyrs because they represent the stuff. Today, why are you here? Because occupiers are here. 40,000 homeless people in London because occupiers are exposing that. The banks got bailed out, but not linked to lending, so there's more home foreclosure. And none of them have been challenged in the court because of their behavior. Occupiers are surfacing up the gap. And I think that so long as we see Occupy as the spirit that deals with the inequality gap, we're all going to benefit from this movement. Many people who should be here are not here because they have adjusted to conditions that they should not adjust to.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Occupy is doing nothing for the homeless. Can I have... Maria, isn't that rubbish? Whoa. Maria, wait! Look, I've been... Please! Get in the fuck back.
Leave him alone.
We have taken in home.
Here is a gentleman.
We have taken in home.
Here's a gentleman who needs a place to stay. Occupy is exposing his need for a place to stay. And the government must prioritize his having a place to stay. There are 40,000 homeless people tonight. In America, half of our homeless men are veterans, for example. And so we fight for the homeless to have a home, and that must be the policy of both the private and public sector. Last one, yes, sir.
Dr. Jackson, can I ask you straight? If Dr. King was still with us today, what would be his words about you speaking here to all the occupiers who've been here since October the 15th?
If Dr. King were here today, he would be occupying. The reason I know is his last action was to occupy. He organized the Poor People's Campaign to go to Washington to occupy the mall and challenge America to choose the war on poverty and healing over the war in Vietnam and killing. The war in Vietnam, we lost 3 million Vietnamese were killed. 55,000 Americans were killed. We lost our soul in the jungles and the rice paddies of Vietnam. He said the killing done there should be spent healing at home. And today, we will look today with such radical streams in the U.S. and Britain, more billionaires than ever and more malnourished than ever. So too much wealth concentrated on the one hand, too much poverty, too much middle class shrinkage, and too much war. And so people are fighting for space, trying to be heard. The people here represent canaries in the mine. The canaries are simply chirping. They're not builders, they're chirpers. They're saying, down here is some pain, hear us. Down here is some unemployment, hear us. Down here are some veterans who are injured emotionally, hear us. Down here are some children, hear us. Down here is a need for fairness, hear us. And we hope that people be heard and not reacted to and rejected. Last one. Yes, ma'am, and then you.
The war in Iraq. I know you obviously disapproved of the war in Iraq hugely. Do you think there's been any benefit that might have?
I can only say about the war in Iraq that I'm glad it is winding down. It's not totally over. In that war, we lost lives and money and honor. When we protested against that war here in 9 years ago, we were right. And this tendency to keep trying to resolve violence with violence, I don't think it's going to work. I hope that the new Iraq will find stability. Because right now it's a very tenuous situation. I'm concerned in Libya, for example, we invaded Libya, but now there's 7,000 mostly blacks in jail in Libya because of the division about Arabs who are light and Africans who are black. And we tend to ignore that, and we should not. We must fight once the rules. A few nights ago, Chelsea played Manchester City in the big soccer match. And what was significant about it was that before the game, they shook hands. When it was over, they embraced. Why can we get along so well? Multiracial, multilingual, very violent fights, very friends pulling back and forth. Because whenever the playing field is even, that's what we learn from athletics. Whenever the playing field is even, and the rules are public, and the goals are clear, the referee is fair, and the score is transparent, we can win. We want an even playing field in economic opportunity.
Yep.
An even playing field in the criminal justice system.
Yep.
An even playing field in access to houses and health care.
Yep.
We all deserve the need to end racism and anti-Semitism and stop Islamophobia. We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters and not die apart as fools. God bless you.